The Barriers to Decarbonising Roads Sandbox, or BDRS, is a programme we're running with Amey and North Lanarkshire Council. It's part of ADEPT Live Labs 2, which is funded by the Department for Transport. The idea is simple. Innovative, low-carbon roads materials exist, but they're not being widely adopted. We want to understand what's holding them back and what we can do to change that. We want to both accelerate startups in the UK while also attracting top innovators from around the world into the UK for the first time. We've now selected 8 companies from over 300 applications, and this next phase is about working with them to test their solutions in the real world.
Live Labs 2 is a 3-year, £30 million programme funded by the Department for Transport and managed through ADEPT. We represent one of those 4 themes of the programme, so the Centre of Excellence for Decarbonising Roads, working with North Lanarkshire Council and Transport for West Midlands, alongside partners Amey and Ecopals, to try to bring together the very best in material decarbonisation for the local road sector.
So why is the council involved in the BDRS Sandbox? Basically, we have all declared a climate crisis, so the BDR Sandbox gives us an opportunity to perhaps look at more innovations for decarbonising materials and road maintenance on smaller, perhaps SMEs. What we've found as part of the sandbox is investigating the products that perhaps have a lower TRL level, technology readiness level, and in doing so we can then maybe promote those materials and the use of those materials across the council road networks. There's been quite a benefit in engaging with the SMEs so that we can understand the major blockers such as procurement and maybe a reluctance to get or to take on the more the sort of less well-known low-carbon materials, and that's an educational benefit for both local authorities and SMEs themselves.
Amey and North Lanarkshire Council are hoping to gain better insight through the Sandbox programme into the barriers that SMEs face on their transition into business as usual. In particular, we feel that the supply-side barriers, whether that be standards and specifications, procurement, or other barriers, can often inhibit the adoption of low-carbon materials, and we're hoping through the Sandbox that we can both identify those barriers but also develop mitigations and recommendations to affect real change in the sector.
That's really the heart of it. This phase isn't just about running trials, it's about understanding what needs to change across procurement, policy and industry practices to make adoption possible.
So what roles do local authorities play in supporting the innovation? Basically, historically, your sort of local authority engineers have always used their go-to materials such as hot rolled asphalt or SMAs, and each of these materials have contained rather large carbon emissions. So basically we were wanting to try and change the behaviour of those seasoned engineers. So these engineers have faced barriers such as pressures on the budgets and typically have taken a very low risk approach when using materials in the past. So we've used this project to support all the local authorities by providing information or a database to them that select the lowest carbon materials for them to use in their road maintenance purposes. We're trying to, through Live Labs, change the local authorities' thinking on materials and maybe sort of promoting low carbon materials from to use on up to data, providing carbon data for them to be able to access. There's quite a considerable behavioural change required in doing so because the engineers have always, as I said before, selected their go-to materials. So we need to promote these low carbon materials in such a way whereby they can be trusted and tested by the local authorities themselves.
Yeah, I've got a lot of the same points. So historically, roads authorities have been followers and typically not at the forefront of innovation. So pressure on budgets and resources has typically resulted in a low risk approach being taken, which generally means same as before. So we're trying to change this through the Live Lab opportunity. We recognise that significant behavioural change is required, whether that be at management, engineer or operative level. But in addition to the challenges, local authorities have got a real opportunity to drive innovation, as we're responsible for about 97% of the road network overall. We also bring a vital voice to the innovation process, giving real operational insight and a deep understanding of the assets to sense check whether innovations will be viable. Equally, when these innovations are successful, local authorities have the peer networks and sector forums where they can champion the adoption of low carbon materials.
The 8 selected companies represent a mix of low carbon materials, including cement alternatives, cold mix asphalt, tyre-derived bitumen and recycled plastic additives. The companies range in size and maturity, so we have companies who are looking to validate their lab tests and continue to develop their products, but we also have scale-ups who are looking for greater market share.
We're hoping that the results of the sandbox can form an integral part of the Centre of Excellence's approach to breaking down barriers to innovation adoption in material decarbonisation. In particular, we'll be looking to publish all the outputs on our online knowledge bank, which will be open source for all local authorities. And equally, we're looking to trial, test, evaluate these SMEs and their low carbon materials as part of our wider innovation program.
The whole focus of our Live Lab is on reducing the whole life carbon of our maintenance operations, and hopefully by working with these contractor suppliers through the sandbox we can gain a better understanding of the carbon issues from their perspective, and also educate them in terms of it's not just short-term carbon we're seeking to resolve, it's this over the whole life of the network. So the whole life of the asset.
Probably the most interesting part of the sandbox that I've found is actually been the interviews with these companies and the information that I've learned as an engineer, as an older seasoned engineer, the information that I have picked up from these interviews about the technical data and the carbon data behind these new innovative materials. It's really been quite educational. And I've really quite enjoyed this part of the project. And I think that, carbon is not the easiest subject in the world to get to grips with. And the carbon jargon can sometimes be a little off-putting. But as part of the sandbox, we are looking at a mentoring system whereby local authorities and SMEs that are producing or designing these low carbon materials can come together and actually sit and discuss or maybe talk about barriers or talk about real showstoppers that are stopping the more innovative materials coming to the forefront to be used on the road network.
We're aiming to build something that lasts beyond this programme, a clearer path to innovation to adoption. Because if we don't solve the barriers, the best materials in the world won't make it onto our roads.